We're live on both places now.
Yeah, we'll be live on both places. Okay. Let's kick this thing off. All right, for the folks that don't know, my name is Mike Narks. I am one half of Drag Driver Pete, and my co-host here, my right-hand man, Mr. Eric White, is going to be here with me. Introduce yourself and tell them what we've done all day today.
So I'm Eric White, co-host of the show and news, right-hand man, do everything drag, drive, repeat, the circuit, help other racers with their events. This week, man, we've been at our booth like maybe 2 hours the whole week.
Yeah.
We've been out networking and doing podcasts. We did, an hour and a half earlier today at PowerTube TV. We've been all over the place this week.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's been a bit crazy. I want to go through our guests here today. We have Tommy Dupree, who is our main man at Summit. We talk to Tommy a lot of times. He's not just the sponsor guy there. He's also like a drag and drive racer, good friend of ours now, and kind of our man. We bounce dumb ideas off of him all the time. So Tommy, kind of introduce yourself. Kind of go through some of that with us.
Yeah, so I've inherently become the filter for these guys. Hey, no, don't do that, do this. But no, these guys are great to work with. So what I do at Summit Racing, anytime you see the brand at a sporting event, signage at a track, a team, any programs that Summit does, anytime you see one of our trucks out at one of the events, that comes through my department. There's only about 5 of us that are involved in that. And so as Mike said, I'm a drag and drive racer myself. And the first one I did, actually had another employee that with us and works in the same department as me. And he and I kind of looked at each other and said, you know what, this is a great opportunity for 2 reasons. One, we could probably make a little money at it, but 2, we could have a lot of people out to finish, because that's in a drag and drive. That's the goal, is just to finish the thing. So we're very happy to be a part of this. But we do about 50 to 52 events a year, and drag and drive for us is growing more and more. And as Mike will get into later, but no, that's basically in a nutshell. That's what I do.
Yeah, Tommy's very, very busy. The guys over here on our right are racers and co-pilots and builders and stuff like that. So I'd like to start with Bryant Goldstone, who's the 2-time Drag and Drive World Champion. We created a point series with Summit and basically took and collaborate all of the Drag and Drive events, the national level events, and Bryant went out and destroyed points this year. I mean, there's never been that kind of I don't know, just absolute domination across the community. Drives a 6-second javelin, 19 days of drag and drive racing, drove the car more than 4,000 miles this year, most likely, in the drag and drive events, and ran 17 days, submitted a 6-second quarter-mile time slip out of 19 days of racing the car. So pretty impressive. So, Bryant, tell us a little bit about you and all that.
Drive a 73 AMC Javelin, big block Chevy powered, Rossler transmission, gear vendor overdrive in it. They's big sponsor of ours. Built a new car, got a 53 Corvette that will be debuting next year, hopefully at sick week, but if not, probably sick summer. So yeah, it was 2 drag and drive cars, and just pretty much out there to be a pain in everyone's ass.
And both of those cars are here. You can see the brand new car that we unveiled Thursday in the Excess Power booth. This is a 53 Corvette. This car is 5-second, quarter-mile capable, street car headlights, taillights, blinkers, and a horn. Plans to pull a big trailer that he normally has with it. This car is going to be bad to the bone. We're looking for this next level of drag and drive cars. I mean, and this is one of them.
Yeah, it should pretty big this year. There's a lot of I always call them plastic cars coming out, but if you can't beat them, you got to join them. So lightweight car, you have to take it for the win. We already pretty much dominated with what we had, but we always had to worry about a car that was lighter than us finishing and beating us. So now it's up to us to finish with a lighter car and just win that way. So
yeah. So Bryant's typically ran an Ultimate Iron, which is still roof and quarters car. I think everybody kind of hears that all the time. But this new car will be in the unlimited class. So it's more of a pro mod style car, so carbon body, much lighter weight than what the Javelin is. And so with the Javelin having capabilities into the 630s, I would imagine with the right air and everything, we in drag and drive quite faster. If you pull some of the drag and drive stuff out, this car can be much faster just because of the weight loss. Plus, Your Javelin was built off of an actual car. This car was purpose built to be a drag car.
Yeah, this car's already been a 5-second drag car in its day. I mean, 15 years ago, it was a 5-second drag car that we refurbished. So it's a bunch of good stuff. We just had to add the street trim to it, our own power plant, which should make more horsepower than the one that was in it when it went 5. So yeah, so it should be pretty easy to go 5s, but it's all easy until you get out there on the track and try to do it. So
That's right. And Jay Blanchard, owner of Jay Wire Solutions, one of our sponsors, but also a longtime friend. Probably one of my favorite cars. I know Eric and I talk about this all the time. The 850 class in Drag and Drive to us is the bread and butter. That is the cars that we're going to see in the next few years go from. I mean, there were 40 something cars in one class this year at one event for the 850 class. Street race, small block power adder at Drag Week and Sig Week. Kind of rules. This car has to be, factory wheelbase. It has to look like a regular car, showing up in the borders. No super lightweight stuff is allowed in this class. And Jay and Brian dominated this year. Won each event that they went to this year. Each Drag and Drive event they went to, they won the class. Except for Drag Week coming second, behind the person that actually took the first ever 850 world champion points championship belt that we gave on Thursday. And those guys were behind by like 4 points. I mean, it's really, really close. Nobody's ever done a point series like this, and it's fun to watch these guys really go after. Jay takes a really engineering, technical mindset to this. So tell us a little about you and the car and all that.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Jay Blanchard, I own Jay Wire Solutions. Really have kind of found this niche bread and butter market of a lot of racers that really want to take their race cars and convert them back into a street car. We've got some cars in the shop right now. We've got a Chevelle that's was originally a steel car and was a nitrous car and, raced down in the deep 5-second, 8th mile realm, and then got hooked on Sick Week, came down last year and saw our success and said, hey, I want to convert my car into this. So we see a large contingent of our customer base saying, I want to enjoy my car more. I want to make it streetable and that type of stuff. And so we do a lot of wiring and plumbing solutions for I'll say that arena of customer. Talking about Brian's car a little bit. So we got a 70 Nova that we, as Mike said, campaigned very actively in the 850 index. It's become 850 index, but in street race small block power adder. We got a Baker Engineering LS based turbo combination in that with a Capizzi trans. We've got quite a few people that help us out with that car. We've won 2 helmets this year with Sick Week and Sick Summer. Mike's charity event called The Circuit. We were out in Missouri for a regional event and won that. We were very successful at Roadkill Nights this year, which is not a drag and drive style event, but it's a DOT tired street race held in Pontiac, Michigan. And then we were able to get down to Drag Week. And we talked about this at the awards. We went 850 with a 6 on Monday and we're high-fiving. And at the end of the day, the results came out and we were in 4th, so we're 6th thou off from perfect for our class. And it puts us in 4th place. So I know it's not like Brian who can just run his stuff all out all the time, so we got to work a little bit harder than he does in some regards, but this is the first of the jabs, back and forth between small tire and big tire and unlimited and 850 index racing. So,
well, I think that's why you guys are here. That's why I think this is a good conversation because there's 2 totally different aspects there. Like, Jay and Brian can't turn in a pass that's quicker than 8500. And there's a lot of times where Eric and I will see and have hundreds of videos where it's 849 with an 8, 848 with a 9, 847, and guys are trying to dial it in. And with the success of drag and drive events you're seeing, it may not be an ability to run back and just jump back in the lane to turn it back down. You may have 3 hours difference. And so now your last pass at this track was an 848 with a 9, and you need to slow it down less than 100 to get there.
Yeah, and you fight air conditions. I mean, no different than a large horsepower car fights air conditions. It's generally cooler in the morning. It's hotter in the afternoon, and there's pitfalls to that. Obviously, you're not going to make the power that you want to make, but now more cars have been on the surface. There's a potential that the track's gotten greasier, which changes the tune-up for Bryant's program. It changes the tune-up for our program, and so it does become difficult. And that ability to turn a car around quickly, definitely becomes a benefit. All these cars have cooling systems in them, and so you'll sometimes see we would call a hot lap, 30 minutes, there's a chance that depending on like how the run goes, in more of a unlimited type class, you might try and turn a car around in an hour, but try and make, 2 runs maybe in that opening session if you're not happy with how the first run went.
So enough about drag racing, because everybody here does a lot of that. And that's what really gets a lot of attention, because it's the easiest to live stream drag racing because you're in one spot.
Mhm.
Well, drag racing for drag and drive racers is literally 5 or 6% of our entire time, right? So we spend 4 or 5 hours at the track each day, maybe 6 or 8, depending on how your success goes. Where drag and drive racing is really the best, in my opinion, is out on the road. You're seeing 200 or 300 race cars that are not supposed to be on the street. They're out driving from track to track. So, Brian, I'd love for you to go through a few of the roadside repairs that you've went through the last couple of years, because that's really, I think, where we cut our teeth and really become race car friends, is the ability to help each other get through that. And then also take Brian, you were up for like 40 hours at one point in a row fixing this car to make sure that it got in and made passes.
Good thing is we weren't roadside on that one. We just broke it at the track and fixed it there. So yeah, we ended up, that was probably the worst I've ever had of a day. I mean, we torched about a quarter size hole through the head, pulled the engine, because it's hard to get the head off in the car. So we pulled the engine out, pulled the head off. Luckily, we were only about 75 miles from Brian's house, my co-pilot, Robin's Racecraft. So he pulled machine shop at his house. So that was awesome. Took the head, went back, and he was there probably a good 6 or 8 hours repairing it, recutting receiver grooves for the O-rings. I mean, it was a mess, reshaping the pocket, everything. So then we got it back. Then we had to put it back together, put it in the car. And I should have used that time responsibly by maybe sleeping, but I didn't. I was just cleaned everything. I was too anxious. That was the worst one we ever did. And we went right out and went pretty much within a couple hundredths of day one after doing all that work, and earlier in the year, we ripped the oil pan off a car in Texas in 100-degree heat and had to change that in the parking lot. That was probably the worst, honestly, I've ever felt at a drag and drive event, except for, of course, wrecking my car. That pretty much sucked, but yeah, at least I was close to home and it was the last day. So yeah, broke about everything you can break in a drag and drive.
That's right. Yeah, that's wild. Well, I'm gonna switch over here to Tommy. How has drag and drive helped Summit and kind of changed what you guys have done? Coming out to these events, helping the community. We talked about you've got a new truck and that. So how has this increase in drag and drive events helped you guys out at Summit?
Well, number one, before we go out and tackle a new sport, whether it be drag and drive or circle track or drifting or anything, the number one thing we want to make sure of is we have coverage for everything those guys need. The last thing I want to do is go out and try to help somebody and I don't have a damn thing in the wagon to help you. So we study very closely as to what people might need out on the road. And as Mike said, the drag race, not that it's easy, but for us, the drag racing side is easy because we have most of that. It's all the consumables, the extra cooling fan, the extra whatever that these guys might need out on the road that they might not have in that little trailer or in the bed of the truck or whatever. So we studied a lot. We learned a lot the first year. I could tell you from the first 2 events we did in 22, we had about 50% coverage on the truck. This year, I keep a lot of stats, and we're at about 85% coverage of what people need on the truck. And we still have the overnight service that we can help. So as far as what we've learned is just how to do a better job to help these guys. And, just make sure that we have what they need and getting stuff to them in a timely manner. There's a lot of logistics that go on with being at one of these events, not just the truck, but having since we do different sporting events, we have kind of a different group of parts for different things. Drag and drive is one thing, road race is one thing. So we kind of got to remember where we're going. And if we're going to one that's a different time, or different style sport, we have to plan for that as well. But there's a lot that goes with the travel side of it. But, drag and drive opened our eyes quite a bit as to the need and the want to be in your car more, enjoy your car more. we do a ton of car shows and they're great partners. They're good guys. The Triple Crowns, those are probably always going to be our bread and butter because those guys are always building new cars. They're always doing this, the newest gadget. The pro touring scene came out and everybody gutted their 70 Chevelles and went and put a roadster shop chassis or something under it. So that stuff's going to always be there. But, for us to do a better job with the drag and drive stuff and on-site motorsports in general, the drag and drive community is what started us having parts trucks at events.
That's awesome. I think it's great what you guys are doing. I mean, we hear stories all the time about how Summit saved the day with a fitting, or we talk a lot of times, safety gear is another thing. Sick week, beginning of the year, people forget that helmets expire, seatbelts expire. So I know you guys go through a lot of that stuff as well.
And we do. Day zero for a drag and drive is our busiest day, especially sick week. People don't double check. They got the car ready, everything's ready to go. They think they've got it made. They go through tech and crap. I've got a 15 helmet, or I've got my belts are out of date. I've got the wrong jacket. They're now fast enough. They need a head and neck restraint. And John Sears and Rick Dodge and that team did a very good job of keeping people safe. And we kind of capitalize on that a little bit. I'm not going to lie, but we also want to make sure that people are safe in general. It's sick week this year, and I've told this story 100 times, but it's sick week this year. I brought a dozen helmets. I'm like, that'll be good. By about 2 hours into day zero, I had to go over and tell John, if a guy's got a 13-second car and a mop bucket, you need to pass tech because I'm out. I can get him one tomorrow, but I don't have anything else. So that's a great thing for us to come in and be able to sell the parts, but also know that we help people be safe and have what they need and maybe help educate next time. You need to buy this stuff. We'd be happy to sell it to you, but let's do it before you get here, so you may not be that 13th guy that didn't get it home.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one of the best things I think about having the trucks at the events is that gives, I think everybody here's probably purchased parts from that truck that switches and fittings and all that kind of stuff that end up kind of helping with all of that and get you going and all that. So I want to flip back over here. I want to talk about street equipment and kind of how you prepare a race car to go from a small radiator that maybe you just need to keep it cool while it's idling to get up there to do a burnout. But how do you prepare your car to go from a race car back to a street car for a drag and drive?
Is that for Jay?
Yeah, either one of y'all.
Well, we've been pretty lucky with the Javelin. I've had the same cooling system in it. We've changed little things. We've went up to 14 volts, so got plenty of battery, lithium, excess power stuff. There's not much we change. We change tires.
Well, so for the folks that are sitting over
For
here
making
eating, yeah, so they have race cars. They have 10-second bracket cars or
Oh, you
something
got
like
it.
that. What are they going to look for to bring it up to date?
Mainly the cooling system's the biggest.
Mhm.
That's all if you can keep your car cool going down the road, the transmission temperatures, oil temperatures. That's pretty much it. Just the basics there, and keeping yourself as comfortable in the car for that long as you can. Which that's the hardest part in our car because it's a bunch of tin and bars, and it's hot in there. I'm changing my steering wheel this year because I'm tired of burning my hands because all the heat, if I leave my hood on, the heat transfers up the column and my steering wheel gets so hot that you can barely touch it by
Interesting.
an hour later. Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, really, that's all we really, it's other than that, it's a race car.
Yeah.
I think something I tell a lot of customers, and I focus on it from the electrical side of things because that's 98% of our business. If you turn your fan on and you don't see a reduction in your engine coolant temperature, like you either don't have enough radiator or you don't have enough fan airflow. Because I think a lot of people goes to the racetrack, they might turn their fan off when they're making their pass. Their car's at 185, 190 degrees when they get to the end of the track and they turn the fan back on. And then when they get back to the pits, if the car's 190 still or 195, your cooling system isn't adequate to actually cool the car down. It's slowing the rate of temperature increase, but it's actually not turning off. And so if you're cruising down the highway and your car gets to 190 and then 191 and then 192 and you continue to drive your car, you're putting load on the electrical system, the relays, the switches, those types of things, but it's not ever going to get cooler unless the air outside gets cooler. So if you depart at 2 in the afternoon and the heat of the day is 5, there's a chance that you're not going to start, you're going to have to like stop and then drive like at night because it's cooler at night. So one of the things that a lot of our customer base has come into is said, you've been successful, you've got a cooling system that's adequate. Like, what do I need? What fan system are you using? What radio are you using? What are some key things? And then the other piece for Brian and I specifically is we've never had a car that wanted to overheat. We've had adequate fan, adequate radiator size. But one of the things we really focused on a lot this year was, hey, even driving 80 miles an hour down the road, like the fan still turns on and off. Well, there's a lot of natural airflow coming through the front end of the car. Like, why do we still see the fan on and off? And so we did a lot of work with shrouding around the radiator this past off season to ensure that every last bit of air that came through the grill of the car made its way through the radiator. And in our application with an air-to-air intercooler in front of that, it's even more critical because you get some turbulence going inside of there and everything. And you've got to ensure that all of that air gets packed into that radiator. And Mike, for your event, because it was cold, I say cold. I mean, I think it was in the mid 40s when we woke up one morning. We had a 2-hour drive and like the car never got over like 136 degrees. I mean, the fan was, I mean, we were 50 degrees before the fan was even going to turn on. And it was almost like, well, we need to like remove one of those block off plates we have because we'd like to get a little more heat in the car. But that's a testament to some engineering and some design that went into building those side panels. But that's like the electrical stress that I focus on with so many customers is if it's not cooling down and you're not able to turn it back off, you're gonna have a problem with street driving.
You know, not to jump in real quick, but something else a lot of people don't think about is you have a high horsepower engine. And I actually went to this and it definitely helped. So you're cruising down the highway, you got plenty of airflow, everything's cool. All of a sudden we get into traffic or construction and you're dead stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for my application, I actually got away from the traditional water pump and went with an electric water pump because the flow stays the same all the time, no matter what. You know, if you're sitting there idling, your water flow is definitely restricted. It's not getting stuff through the radiator to be cooled off in enough time. So I actually I carry a spare motor just in case it burns up, but the electric water pump makes a big deal especially for dragging dry stuff. So for me, it did.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much a standard, isn't it?
We run a mechanical pump still.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and some of that, and not to go too far off on a tangent, but some of that is we want to try and keep as many things that we can like buy at like an Advanced Auto or an O'Reilly's or something,
Sure.
you know, that's more readily available. So, you know, Tommy, as you just said, you carry a spare motor.
Yeah.
Well, that's additional weight in the trailer. And then that's demand on the vehicle. So, and I'll say traditional big block Chevy stuff, LS stuff. I mean, if there's things like we run F-body alternator, I can get that in O'Reilly Auto Parts. You know, we run a F-body water pump. I can get that at O'Reilly Auto Parts. The fan that's actually in Brian's car is out of a Chevy Cruze. It's hit and miss, but you can get those at an O'Reilly Auto Parts. So we don't carry those items as spares just because we don't want the trailer to weigh 2,000 pounds behind us and the added stress and load on the transmission and those types of things.
That would probably be light for my trailer. I've got a spare transmission, a spare center section, spare water pump that I've never used. I've had that same water pump, the Missouri water pump that's been in my car. It's been in my car before I did drag and drives.
Yeah.
That's how long that thing's lasted. But I
Mhm.
keep waiting for it to go at some point. I carry a spare fan because at some point, those are the same fans that have been on my car since I wrecked it, at least. So those were I never changed the fan on drag week. It's part of it's not being a 16-volt system that everybody that went there always had issues with them, you know, but 14 volts, they seem to be pretty happy with. But
Yep. I'd agree.
yeah, I would bet my drag week trailer probably weighs more than my car.
Yeah,
Wow.
Wow, that's.
I need to
Put
weigh
that
it
on the
sometime.
scales. Yeah.
I'd like to
you
just
probably
see.
doesn't want to know.
Yeah,
Does your new car have trailer brakes on it?
new car will have trailer brakes on it, and we actually put an airbag on that one for the back so it doesn't load the car as hard. Which I'm gonna be putting one on the Javelin too, just because trailer gets heavier and heavier, and I keep packing. It's full inside, so I just keep building shelves outside and brackets to hold stuff on the outside.
I was thoroughly impressed when I saw you drag the spare transmission out at National Trails.
Yeah, well, if you don't have it, you need it. You know,
I know.
that's the first time I've used the spare transmission at the track, but that would have cost me the run if I didn't have it.
Yep,
Well,
absolutely.
and that's one thing I want to talk about for sure, because that was after you guys had pulled the engine and fixed the head and worked all that time. You go down and make a 6-second pass the next day. You go and you have to replace the transmission.
Yeah, you go from running basically it did, I think 650s every day except for when it melted the head, and that was still in a 712, I believe.
And you pulled like after it hurt it or something, or before it hurt it, you pulled the water out or something?
Yeah, we actually pulled the water out the day before at Indy because when I went to start the car the next morning, I always roll it over before I get the ignition on, just to make sure there's nothing in any cylinders, and I don't hydrolock it. But yeah, I rolled it over and it did the clunk, and I'm like, oh shit. So I started pulling plugs, and the very first plug I pulled out was full of water. So I pulled the rest of them out that side, and that was the only one that was hurt. It had a little issue for the last year and a half that we couldn't find the leak. I've had the engine out of the car, back at the engine shop, and he's taken it apart, looked, tried to find it, pressure checked it forever, and it just randomly would leak. So,
Wow.
so yeah, we had it out that day, and then we had it out the next day, and I'm not sure why it decided to, maybe it was the driving it, getting as hot as we did. Maybe it softened the metal a little bit that it was worse the next day. I'm not really sure, but yeah, it was on a good run. It felt good. And then I made a few weird noises at the end, and I shut it off always at the end of the track. I restarted, and I thought I had a giant header leak or a broken header. And I drove it back and said, Brian, something's messed up here. It's not running too good.
There's a thumb hole in
Yeah.
that head.
Yeah.
And that was head that faces towards the firewall, right?
No, actually, it was actually facing the motor plate. It was
Okay.
on the front of the engine.
Okay, well, that's nice.
So you could look down and see it. Yeah, it was better that it wasn't, but we've got a pretty good firewall. But I used to run an aluminum firewall before it was. I did it 1 year with. I shouldn't have had it, and I ended up torching or lifting the head gasket, and it ended up. I saw sparks come into started trying to cut a hole through the firewall. So,
Wow.
yeah. So proper safety stuff is the way to go.
Well, especially at that level, so we're seeing that like guys are building cars that, oh man, 1150, I don't need a cage, I don't need that, or like the newer cars that can run 9.0s and stuff. You're still going at something miles an hour. Like you have to think through some of that just because it's the minimum dumping. That's where you need to stay.
Right. Yeah, definitely. It is nice to get in a newer car and run 9s and,
Have air conditioning between tracks.
yeah, let the air out of the tires, run, and then put air back in them and leave. So I did that once this year. That was fun, but not as much fun as going fast though. So
Well, and I think that's why, it's 100% why you told us you built a new car. You're ready to go fast.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, the new car should go on the 5s. If it doesn't, then we don't know what we're doing because there's no reason why it can't. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting year. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Like I said, there'll be a lot of competition out there this year. Tom might even be able to make it to the end one time. I kind of doubt it, but maybe. There's a few other big hitters that'll be out there, but
Eric and I wrote an article. We were talking about 6-second quarter-mile cars that are either capable or have done it, or we look for them to do that in 2025. By the time we got done at PRI this time, that list is over 40 cars, drag and drive built cars that are 6-second quarter-mile capable that are going to be, should be attending an event this year. And there's at least 7 or 8, maybe a dozen 5-second cars. First time in history we've seen that.
Yeah.
I heard you say that the first time though. You got to delete one of them because one of them is one of my best friends, David Armitrout. Hope he's listening because he did go a 680 something the first day.
Yeah.
The first day doesn't count.
Nope.
So you had him as a 610, I guess potential.
Yeah.
But I still think something blew across the track, and gave him his first 6-second run. So you never know. That's why you have to back up records, right? So,
Yep.
Mhm.
so yeah, David, if you're listening, maybe put a little bit more horsepower in it. Get your tuner. I don't know. Have him actually talk to Brian and get some pointers, and let's get that thing in the 6s this year.
Yeah, the tuner, Paul Powell. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of,
Dave has got a lot of nicknames. He's hashtag my slow friend Dave. He's also day one Dave. So we pick on him a lot. He's a good guy, and his car, he'll get his stuff together pretty soon. He'll be a contender, at least in Ultimate Iron.
That's also as you move into unlimited.
Yeah, as I move into Unlimited, I'm gonna try to leave it in good hands so that he can at least have, you know, a shot at winning, you know, so we might even have to put him in my car if we have to, you know, let him rent the Javelin to run, you know, so we can get him in his sixes.
That's awesome. Well, Jay, I want to talk about the competition within the 850 class. You know, you guys, you and Randy Seward, Dustin Trance,
Mhm.
you know, there's a handful of guys there that can come out at any event and be highly competitive in the 850s. What are some of the folks you're looking forward to racing this year?
Well, you mentioned, I mean, Randy won the 850 championship, won 3 events this year. You know, so kudos to him. And you know, in drag week, like I said, we went 50 with a 6 and we were really happy. And then it was like, dang, 4th. Crap. You know, and Dustin had transmission problems. You know, it really, there are a lot of cars. If they're running 850, they're capable of running 840. You know, Chris Mary comes to mind. Chris Mary's been 850. Jeremy Ortiz has been 850. There are some class rules and things like that where people don't fit, maybe in street race, small block power adder for drag week. But Tom has 2 of the 275 classes. So I think about, you know, Chris Mary's been perfect. Tim Flanders has been perfect. Tim's been doing some NMCA stuff. But you know, so Tom's got a couple NMCA events or I'll say carryover events, if you will, that are going to be there this year. So those are the guys that come to the immediate forefront. But if we talk about world champion, it's a lot of time commitment also, you know, and I mean, an event win is awesome. And we've been fortunate enough to win a couple of events and then, you know, pursuing the world championship was kind of like the next check in the box for us, you know? So, I think having the competition like makes you work harder and makes you try and be better than what you are. I mentioned this in the awards 2 days ago. I think we were looking back at some 2018 results or something like that. We were actually talking about 5 people that made 5-second passes. And I think in 2018, so just 6 years ago, an 862 won street race small block power adder. An 894 was second, and like a 920 was third. You know, and it's so interesting because the rules when the drag week rules were generated in 2004, cars weren't even going bottom 9s. So it was never meant to be an 850 index class. It was meant to be cars that fit in this realm of an 850 sorted cage, and just with the ability to make 1100 horsepower today in a 3,200 pound car, because that's really what it takes, you know. And then you've got to have a suspension package in a vehicle that's stock, that is repeatable, that you can get down at a lot of tracks. And that's something that we've been really fortunate to, because anybody that has a historic bracket racer or has been around the racetrack long enough knows that it's the consistency game, you know, is what we're doing. And so how far the car bumps in is critical. So the staging procedure is critical. And that's when it's in Brian's hands, you know. And then the car's got to do everything it needs to do going down the track, and it's got to run every incremental. And some drivers opt to be more aggressive up front and maybe run less power out the back. We've found to be consistent. We like to run the car a little bit neutered, for lack of a better term, up front. And we just, I know the incrementals when they come up, if we're gonna have a good run or not. So
So let's talk about how many runs it takes to get that. You have an entire notebook of stuff that's it's like that. Some stats you were giving, Doug, you guys have made 370 something passes just on that motor. How long is that? How long has that motor been in the car?
the engine's been in the car for 3 seasons now. So we debuted that engine at Midwest Drags in 2021. I think was the engine debut for that. And we won Midwest Drags. We actually went on day 1. We went 850 with a 1, I think, on like our first pass. And that format's interesting. You got to run 2 passes in the day, and that provides a challenge. It's a 4-day event, but you got to turn in 2 time slips per day. Yeah. So the engine's got 3 seasons on it now. I think we did 5 drag and drive events last year, or maybe 4, and we did 5 drag and drive events this year. I mentioned Roadkill Nights. Brian likes driving the car to work on Fridays. You know, so I think we're somewhere around 15,000 street miles, and I have slow motion video of that car for like 368 of the 374 passes. And it's interesting because I would even think that some people have challenged and said like, well, you know, come on, you've had the engine out of this thing. We did valve springs on it last year before drag week, And we actually have 3 sealed engine marks on that engine because we entered the sealed engine class for drag week. Like, why not? We're not pop the thing open. So, so like I said, we've done valve springs, but frankly, the whole package has been very good to us. We did a transmission last year at drag week in the pits. It was horrible. Car on jack stands, nose up in the air. And actually you mentioned Paul Powell earlier. Paul and Dave were done and like packed up, like turning in their time slip. And Paul's like, I can rebuild the power glide. He's like, you have this, this, and this. And we're like, yeah. He's like, where are you pitted at? We're gonna come tear it apart. I mean, and Paul's a burly dude, kind of like me. I mean, he took that transmission and he rolls that thing on its side, and we had cut the top of a VP fuel can out. So we had like some form of a transmission stand to get it vertical, and we rebuilt the transmission. And then we got on the road at 6 something, and we had to drive 35 minutes north to get E85 to turn around and head back south. We got to the hotel at like 2:15 in the morning. And much like the consistency of the 850 stuff, we get up at 5:30 every morning. I mean, it is a job.
You may not go to bed till 1:30.
Well, we got into the hotel at night at 2:15. And so we literally slept like 2 hours and 45 minutes, and we got back up, and we were the 4th person or 5th person in line when the gates opened. But that's how we run our program.
Well, that's what it takes a lot of time. Like Bryant knows, you end up and Tommy too. You got to be in there. You got to run that right. So so here we have 5 and 6 second car. We have an 850, highly competitive. Tommy ran a Trans Am with a NA setup, and it was in the 10s.
Yeah.
And then now that combo or new combo is in
New combo should be 970, 980 by the time we get it lined out. So yeah.
That's awesome. So as we roll out this 10-0 champion deal, and this was the first year for that, the point series and things like that, I think we're going to see that class, which is the goal, to begin to really become highly competitive. There's a lot of opportunities for racers at Rocky Mountain Race Week. They have, anywhere from 9-0 to 14-0 index. You've got DYO classes at 6-week events or 6-magazine events, and you've got the SME challenge or SME Street Machine Eliminator at Hot Rod Drag Week. So as the 10-0 stuff continues to grow, it's interesting because those guys don't get additional ET bonus points and things like that. So it comes down to class wins. And, as a former like high level racer back in the day, what are the things that these guys are going to start looking for as ways to get these points? I mean, are they going to start picking events and things?
Possibly, yeah. I think depending on what the event structure is and what the opportunity is to get that 10-0 championship, is everybody looking, I won't say cherry picking, but they're going to start looking for classes where they would have a better opportunity to do that. When you go to a drag and drive, I love watching these guys run. But I would say close to 70% of the cars there are 10-0 and slower. That makes it the bigger part of the field, and there's nothing wrong with that. The fact that you guys are now offering a way to win a championship doing that, I think it's going to make these 10-0 guys take this more seriously.
Yeah.
They go out, they want to try to win class maybe, or at least finish the event. But if there's a way to be a 10-0 championship, they're going to start looking at their combination. How can I get it to a 10-0? How can I repeat that? They're going to start making improvements and start rethinking their strategies on what they do. We're all racers. We're all competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that says they're not and has a race car, they're a liar. I'll flat tell them. But we want the race to be the first at anything. So I think that's a good thing for the sport. It does give these guys another incentive to come and do more events, and that's what it's all about. So that's my personal opinion.
Well, and one thing we saw this last year or in 2023 season, was that it made guys like Bryant go out for one more event than they had planned.
Yeah.
Well, that put him on 4 events for 23, and he took the championship at the last event, racing against Brian Hargett. I mean, it literally came down to who was going to place and where, and if they could reset the record. And then this year, you go out and you do 5 events, dude. You're an animal. So 4 in the javelin. 1, you did 666 where we cruised.
That was just a
13.
vacation with my wife, though. That wasn't a race.
Right, you had the AC on in the Corvette. You had the cooled seats on.
Definitely. I had a chauffeur. She drove the whole route. So yeah, it was nice to kickback. And she had to drive the first route partly because of you, or the whole route because of you, because it egged me on about doing a burnout. I got pulled over the first night. So.
Yes. Yeah, we were at Waffle House. Big shout out to Waffle House. We were at Waffle House and he pulled out and did a burnout. And this police officer came out of nowhere. Nobody saw him. It was great. It was a high RPM, just like almost, just a rip, man. It wasn't even crazy.
It was nice and controlled. It wasn't, like a Mustang with crowds or anything.
Yeah.
And made the turn onto the interstate. And that police officer was super nice and conversational.
Yeah, he actually had a Z06 Corvette, so that probably saved me a little bit, If it would have been a Mustang guy, he would have definitely, it would have probably been a woman.
We would have
then,
had
but-
casualties involved. It was a Mustang.
Yeah, burnout time for sure. Well, big shout out to Waffle House. We'd love to have you as a sponsor. We travel all over the country. That is another big thing. That's why it's so important for companies to be involved in the drag and drive community, however they get in. There were 37 events across the world. 29 or 30 of those were in the United States. And these are week-long events. We're traveling to different places. We're all over the country. So opportunities abound for sponsors to be part of this.
You just said something important. I believe you owe me a soda bomb.
We actually talked about that. So last year on this exact podcast, we discussed how many events would happen in 2024. And Tommy guessed that there'd be 42 events, super close with 37. I expected we would see a lot more weekend events or true street style events grow and maybe drive a little further. But we didn't see that this year. So we did see some new events. We went from 27 events in 2022 to 37 events in 2023 or in 2024. And so we'll see a bunch more, I think, as we come in, because guys are beginning to realize there's promoters that are seeing that there's opportunity here, and it gives the racers a reason to get in their car and be more
And
involved.
on the walk over here, we talked about, there was an event that came out of the woodworks that is so close to my house that I'm not even going to take the truck and trailer. I'm looking at my schedule to see if I'm available for it, but they're coming out of the woodworks, and it's crazy. Even some of the tracks, I had a good conversation with Brock from Bowling Green, and he came over and picked my brain about what would it take to put on a drag and drive, single track drag and drive. Which, if you think about that, that's kind of a unique deal. You can go 4 different directions for 200 miles and just use one track.
Yeah.
And it also saves a lot on at least logistically, trying to figure out where your next hotel is going to be and planning that stuff ahead of time. So that's another interesting concept. I think you might see, if he does one successfully, knowing Brock, it will be. But that might change the game on how events start coming about.
And I think the biggest thing with these new events is racers need to support these events that are close to their tracks. We hear all the time that there's not an event in our area, and then we get a promoter that puts one together in that area, and then nobody shows up. So I think that's a big thing going forward, is if there's an event in your area, make sure you go to it. Make sure you support that. That's how these things are going to grow. You can't complain about one not being in your area and then not show up when it's there. So hopefully we can see more of that participation with these smaller events too.
And that's the big thing. You have, well, you guys are just as stupid too, but you have 3 complete idiots sitting here that want to do this. But honestly, it's the most fun I've ever had doing this. But the people that talk about, I wish there was an event closer to me, and then they don't go out and support it. You have the best chance and least amount of commitment out of any of the 3 of us sitting here at this table. Go out and support that local track. Number one, we want to keep the doors open. Doors are open. We got racers buy parts. That keeps me in business, and we keep doing what we do here. But it is a huge commitment to go out and do a 1-week event. The travel time, the time off of work, the hotel bills, the fuel bills for the race car and the tow rig. At meals, we spend a lot of money in all the areas that we go to. And so if there's an event local track, I got go and support them, help them out, and then maybe they'll do something better the next time.
Yeah. So I just got the 4-minute heads up. So as we wind down here, I want to talk about 2025 and what everybody kind of has a plan for the season. We'll start with Jay, and then we'll work back this way.
So right now, as far as Brian's Nova goes, we're signed up for sick week. We feel the need to come back and try and win again. I was gonna say, like, I'm losing words here. We're also signed up for Mike's event, the circuit. So we're gonna
Actually, you're the quickest quickest quarter-mile car. So for our event, you get free entry back into that because obviously you're awesome.
and we get our car on the back of the shirt
Oh,
again.
yes.
That'll be the second year for that. And then most certainly drag week. So Brian and I are a little bit delayed in kind of putting together our 2025 schedule. Drop the Hammer is a local event for us, put on by Carl Stansel. So we'll most likely participate in that. Jay Solutions sponsor was one of the sponsors of that event last year. So we'll potentially be helping Carl out again this year with that. And again, it was supposed to be at Martin, but I think it's going to be mid-Michigan here now, I think is the route. So those are 3 events, or 4 events certainly on the radar, and then potentially into Roadkill Nights again. We were in the quick 8 out of the small tire, and we lost first round. So of course the competitor in us, as Tommy's mentioning, is like, hey, now we want to make it to the semifinals, right? Or we're always trying to get better at what we're doing. So, and as you mentioned, 10-0 stuff, I got an S10 that I might start working on here one of these days. So maybe a 10-0 index vehicle coming out of the J-Wire stables. So
Well, with me, I'm definitely going to do drag week's a given. I'm doing that for sure, but I'm not signed up for anything except sick week. That'll be with one of the 2 cars, whichever's, if the new one's ready, I'll be there with that. If not, the Javelin will make another run. And then I think that'll go into Matt Frost's Mega Week. We'll definitely be there with one of the 2. I found out that I can run the new car there too now. There's no weight limits. So it just depends what people show up. Hell, I might drive around all year with both cars in the trailer just to make sure I bring enough,
Yep.
But those 3 races for sure. 6 Summer is a probable thing. I really, at some point, I got to not do 4 races a year, but I'd like to come do your guys' race just with my Corvette because I can drive the thing there, do it, have a little fun, get to actually talk to people, and maybe even have fun. So I mean, it's not really much fun when you're under your car all the time, but we like the competition part of it, so we do it.
Yeah, certainly. And for Eric and I, dragdriverpete.com is probably the easiest way to find wherever we're going to be at next. This past year, we went to 14 drag and drive events and about 18 other events I think we went to. So I don't know where we're going to be, but dragdriverpete.com is the easiest way to find out where we're going to be.
We're going to kick off the year summit wise. We're going to kick off the year at Sick Week. We'll be definitely at Drag Week. We will be at Six Summer with the truck. Possibly another regional event or 2 where we'll be at Mega Week. That kind of all fits the rotation of the truck. Me personally, I am signed up for Six Summer. I will do Drag Week. And as these new events, regional events pop up with my crazy schedule, you'll probably see me doing more of those. I like to get to at least 3 or 4 this year. That's my plan.
Well, and just to end here, the regional event stuff becomes important for the community because there's a lot of opportunity for guys that may only do one big event a year, one national level event, but they can sneak in. Now they can sneak in and take off on a Thursday afternoon and be off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and be back at work Monday. And it doesn't cost us much. We're willing to camp. Like at the circuit, we're doing a big thing for the campers, just trying to save a little bit of money for those guys and give them a great time. So I want to say thank you guys for coming on. Thank you for taking time away for the PRI shows, one of the coolest shows in the whole world. If you haven't been here, you need to do it. And then, thank you for putting that car on the line. I mean, you guys really laid it out this year. It's pretty impressive to watch everybody do what they did. Tommy thrashed to get the truck ready to get there, and a brand new build that goes out and does well. You guys obviously just over the top with the experiences and the racing and things like that. So, from us at Drag Driver, we want to say thank you guys for doing, for putting that show on for everybody that's out there. And then thank you for being here with us. We appreciate you guys a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for doing what you do. For bringing recognition to this sport.
It's, again, I say it all the time, it's the coolest car community. There's nobody cooler than drag and drive racers and people. Like it's the best community out there. So I'm gonna turn this thing off, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Dragdriverpete.com, dragdriverpete, anywhere, everywhere, all over social media. You can find us there.
Thank you.